Now, as we talk about this, it's important, and when I do these kinds of presentations, or I'm teaching from a more of a professorial standpoint, you can tell my style is not so much as a preacher, but as a teacher, and that's intentional. I'm utilizing this because I want you to think deeply about these things. We've got to talk a little bit about the view of evil, and what is the world generally said as it relates to evil. And first of all, we need to recognize that Eastern religion has answered the question of evil quite directly in one of two ways. Everybody say Eastern religion. See, we're talking about the religions of the East and the thought of the East. And there's two great faiths. There's more, but there's two great faiths that kind of capture the thinking of the Eastern world. And remember, more than half the population of the earth lives in what we would call the Eastern world. And those two great faiths are Buddhism and Hinduism and the various faiths that came up around that. One says that evil is not real. It's not real, but it really is a result of desire that comes from self. As long as you think of yourself as an individual and you want something you don't have, you're going to be living in unreality that produces evil. So evil comes from a self-consciousness and desire. This is Buddhism. And so the way of ridding yourself of evil or ridding the world of evil is to annihilate the self through meditation and rising up above the self, so you no longer think of yourself as I or me, but you are one with the great God consciousness or the great mind, or you're one with the universe. So the answer to evil is to simply annihilate self, individuality, and be absorbed internally into the great consciousness. And then desire will be gone and evil will be gone. After all, why does a war break out? One people see something in another people's land or something that they possess, property or goods. They want that, so they invade it. Desire is the mother of evil. That was the Buddhist understanding and philosophy. And so evil is not real. It is an illusion that we create. The second, and it's not really something that we take too seriously. The second view of evil is that evil, and this is what we find in Hinduism, is a consequence of choices made in past lives. Everybody say past lives. And so evil, and in this philosophy, also in the Buddhist philosophy, evil is often seen as the balancing side of good. You've got evil and good. So these are two necessary balances. So when you do something wrong, you have karma that will come back to you in the next life. When you do something good, you will have dharma that comes back to you in the next life. And you'll sometimes see the yin and the yang. They're equal and opposite forces that balance the universe. And so all the beings of the universe are in various stages of experiencing past choices. Now, this is really important because in the Hindu concept of evil, evil is not something to be resisted, it's something to accept. Everybody say accept. You simply accept it. In the Buddhist idea, you just kind of ignore it, or you so annihilate your own self of the consciousness that it no longer is relevant to you. In Hinduism, you accept it. So we have in India an accident just a few years ago in which there was a great boat that sank, and as the boat sank, there were scores of people that were in the water drowning. Many of them were Brahmins. Brahmins are from the highest caste in India. And there came boats of people that were from the lower castes, and they threw ropes to the Brahmins to save them from drowning, and the Brahmins refused to take the ropes and drowned. And the reason they drowned is because they would not take the ropes from someone from a lower caste. They didn't want to be contaminated with the karma of that person from a lower caste. So they drowned. In other words, accept the suffering and realize you deserve it, or that in some way you don't want to mix up the great yin and yang. We have today, it's less frequent in India. It's finally been outlawed, but I've been to India twice, had numerous conversations with folks, and it still occurs, but it's been a common practice in India for years that if a young married couple, if the husband dies before the wife, it is because the wife did something in a past life or this life that caused him to die. And so in his funeral pyre, they would burn the dead. Her responsibility was to jump into the fire and to be burned with him alive. And so the widows, if they resisted, were thrown into the fire. It still happens, very rarely today apparently, but it still occurs. And it's the belief, if they're not allowed to die that way, often they will kill themselves because everyone believes that if the husband dies, the wife did something, and it's her karma that she should die as well. So Hinduism has been a tremendous curse to its people in every possible way. It's produced poverty, it's produced generational wickedness, it's produced a whole generation of people that won't eat certain kinds of food because it might be a relative or someone that's working out their karma and dharma. And so it's really, it's a religion that has a result, and the result has been wickedness and evil for the people that have been following it for generations and for centuries. But these are the Eastern answers to evil. It either isn't real, needs to be ignored, or it is something that you just accept because it's a balancing force. The Christian worldview, the Judeo-Christian idea of evil is very, very different. It approaches the subject of evil head on, and it takes evil very seriously. I want you to understand there is no faith and no religion that exists, including Islam, that takes evil and the results of evil so seriously as Christianity. Christianity takes evil so seriously, it goes beyond the concepts of even Judaism. We believe evil is real. Now, there are nouveau Christians that call themselves Christians that really have left the foundational doctrines of the church that say that man is basically good and evil is a result of a lack of education. That is not the Christian way of thinking or living. That is a non-Christian pagan view of evil. It is not a Christian view of evil, either from the teachings of Christ or the teachings of Paul or any of the teachings of Scripture. Okay? Are you following me? Everybody say evil is real. So we need to first of all understand that. Let's take a look at the big rocks. Number one, evil is real. Say evil is not an illusion or a state of mind. It is a tangible force. We believe that evil is a very real thing. Now, when we say that evil is real, the question comes up, is evil a force? Is evil an action? What is evil? Because in reality, think about this, we sometimes have a hard time defining evil. I mean, to the person holding the abortion sign and protesting abortion, abortion is evil. To the person holding the pro-choice sign, with all of their heart, they believe that the great evil that they're protesting is the loss of choice. So each one is choosing which evil is greater, the loss of choice or the loss of the infant human. And really, it boils down to, what do you think is evil? To one person, the evil is to take away any kind of freedom from someone owning guns, that people should be free. They value freedom. They're free to own guns, and we shouldn't take away that choice. To someone else, perhaps who's been a victim of gun violence or lives in a state of war in their neighborhood, they would like to see that freedom restricted or removed. And they believe that the passion to have guns is evil. Each one is choosing to believe that something is evil. So the way you define evil is important. And we have these political and these debates all the time. But let me just say that when you really see the face of evil, it's obvious.